Hi everyone, apologies if my camera is shaking a little bit because it is kind of balancing on a set of pillows. Wait, let me actually show you. Yeah, so that's the current situation, but we're gonna just roll with it, right? Because I don't have a better tripod. Again, hi everyone. If you didn't know, my name is Veronica, and around 3 years ago, I packed all of my bags and moved abroad to the UK to study here. I went to UCL in London, and this is also where I've been living for the past 3 years, as well as where I'm at now, currently. And last Friday, I actually had my last class of my undergraduate degree. As weird as it sounds. This does not mean that I'm finished and graduated yet, just because I have basically the most important part of my degree ahead of me, which is my third year exams. They're taking place end of April, beginning of May. So I still have a month and a half to go. Not that long actually. And after that, I'll be properly done. I honestly don't know how the past 3 years have gone by. I'm gonna try not to be too focused or nostalgic about that in that video because it's that's not the focus of it, you know? I'm obviously gonna have to go through it on my own and deal with it. Fun things are coming up, but finishing itself just never, rarely feels good. You're always just thinking about what you're losing, and you're more focused on that usually than what you're gaining. So just let me have my peace with that. But today I thought it would be a really, really fun video idea and sit down as well because I've just been sucking at vlogging. To just talk about my experience of studying abroad specifically and basically tell you about all or most of the things that I've learned while doing that, while studying abroad. This won't be necessarily focused or catered towards my degree. By the way, I did economics, if you were wondering. And it's definitely not going to be about what I learned in economics, because I don't even know if I could tell you that. I just want to talk more generally in terms of life knowledge, experiences and lessons that I've had that are quite specific to, I guess, moving abroad at that age and pursuing education away from your family and your home country as well, because I guess a lot of people move for studies, but not that many move abroad. It's definitely something that has become much more accessible than ever to study abroad. Maybe not right now in the UK because of Brexit, but generally speaking. Babes, I'm trying to record a video here. Just for half an hour. Yeah, coming back to what I was saying. It's a very specific experience, and I think a lot of people, especially those who watch me, are interested in it. Just without further ado, I just want to talk about the past 3 years and what they have taught me and how studying abroad changed me and what I learned from that very interesting experience. To be fair, I think I've always been a person who wanted to study abroad. I remember being 12, 13 and being yep, I just want to move out to a different country where they speak English and they have Starbucks. I just always felt very drawn towards other countries than my own, as much as I like Poland for whatever reasons. And it's always going to be my home, but I just never really felt that identified with it, or I always just sensed almost that there was something more out there. And moving abroad for university was the first, I guess, instance in which I was able to do that, because high school, that was not really a thing, going to a high school abroad. Also, I hope you appreciate this background. This is genuinely why I made this tripod and this setup here, because I just love these flowers. Also, last disclaimer, I think a lot of these things, or some of these things at least, will be particular to London at least, because it is a very specific city. I don't know what other cities in the world, in Europe especially, have that kind of mix of people, and I think that mix of people it was a large contributor basically to many of the things here. The fact that I was exposed to so many nationalities and cultures and people from all around. And this is kind of also my first point that I wanted to talk about. I think the first thing I learned, and I learned it pretty quickly, is just how big the world is and how many different people there are to get to know, people with different stories, again, backgrounds, cultures, etc., etc. And I always kind of realized that, but it's different to know that on a conceptual level, and it's different to experience that in real life, as with most things or all things. And because I come from Poland, and specifically in Poland from a small city on the east, which is very homogeneous in terms of race, religion, I never had that. The only time I saw Black people was when I was on holidays, basically. And I think that's also the most exciting part about studying here, just the fact that you get to know so many perspectives, and You get to see that people experience this world and this existence in such different ways. People have different preferences and likes and dislikes. And I know this is a very general point overall because, wow, people are different. Is that what you learned? But yes, in kind of in a way. But it was very like an inspiring, positive way, I'd say, in my life. And definitely being exposed to other people just makes you like more inspired about life, and also in a way indirectly more okay about my own specific quirks, because once you get to know so many people, or even superficially, you get to see all these differences. You just realize that you're just one of them, and that's like, it's okay to have different preferences or tastes or dislikes, or like, it just made me feel much more like accepted and okay with who I was, I guess, even though I don't think I had huge issues with that. Moving on, I think the second biggest thing that changed for me, and that again specific to, I guess, studying at one of the better universities out there and I don't know how else to say that about UCL, to not sound pretentious because it always will be, but UCL is a very good university, right? And I'm surrounded by very smart people in my degree and other degrees all around. And I think everyone who comes here or studies at those sort of universities is an ambitious person when they come here, right? They're usually top of their grade, top of their class, good students. And in school, before coming to university, all of us were kind of like praised for that, I think. A lot of us, I think, relied on academic validation to get validated overall. And so when you put all those people together and you put them in one cohort or one class, essentially there's going to be like and I don't hate to use this term, but like a normal distribution of talent and abilities and knowledge or intelligence, whatever it is. And I just suddenly found myself not at the top anymore. And it was a very difficult realization, just reality that I had to deal with, because I always thought I was like one of the best in terms of like intellect. That was always something I prided myself on. And through university and dealing with like receiving lower grades, or like I said, not being the top of the class, being okay with being average, all of those things, like I learned to strive for my personal best. And I know this is the most cliche thing I can say, but I feel like once you find yourself in that kind of environment, you have two options. You either can choose to still exert like a lot of effort and put like your absolute best and just basically grind it out, and even that wouldn't say guarantees you like academic success. Or the other option for you is just to find other modes of validation than academia, and this is, I guess, essentially the route that I decided to follow, because I realized that just being highly ambitious and striving towards the top always will eventually come at a compromise of my mental health, and that is something that I also learned. I'm not willing to ever compromise that in terms of anything, whether that's a relationship, a career choice, university degree, friendship, anything. Like, my mental peace and stability is the top priority for me. So if you're in your first year, for example, and you're struggling with that, or any other situation in which you just cannot imagine yourself letting go of that ambition, let me tell you, I was one of those people, and I found myself on the other way of the tunnel, let's just say, and you genuinely can be okay without being the best academically, and it's really fine, and you just realize that there's value in all other parts of you than just the way you like answer questions on a test designed by someone else. Actually, a side point I want to add to this, I also realized, that grades are not as important in the real adult world, at least in terms of like careers and your further progression in life, I guess. Grades are not as important as, for example, soft skills such as communication, teamwork, public speaking, experience. So whether you get an internship or you work on some projects or you do some like extracurriculars, even I'd say like connections and networking. So just being able to connect with people, ask them the right questions. So I would really actually say that grades are not even as high up there in terms of priorities or valuable things when it comes to your success later in life, which is something a lot of people will tell you, and is genuinely true. So the next thing I want to talk about is another one of those tough pills to swallow, at least for me. But it's also a very freeing realization once you fully acknowledge it. Basically, this is a shocker for some of you maybe, but studying something at a university doesn't oblige you to either like it or pursue it in the future. And the second thing that's also very important to add is that even if you do study something that you're not going to pursue in the future, or you don't even like that much or end up liking that much, as it is a case for many people, this is not a waste of time. It's not like a sunk cost. It's not like you made a bad decision and you're basically lost, or you're going to have to do it all over again. This is actually something that my dad had to really push on me, as in like the lesson, that kind of lesson, because I feel like I really quickly into my degree realized that like I think economics is not like my biggest passion, or at least maybe it didn't fully align with my expectations, or maybe I felt inclined to study other things once I got into university because I learned about other subjects. All of those reasons combined, I was just really questioning my choice and talking to my parents a lot and saying, oh, maybe I chose wrong. Maybe it was like, it's a waste of time. And, you know, it's a waste of money and resources as well, because obviously it costs, like, studying and living in London is quite costly. And my dad was always saying, like, no, like, it's an experience. Even if you end up doing something completely different, first of all, you can use the kind of skills you learn from economics if you decide to open your own cafe, you know. But the other even bigger important thing is, I'd say, once you're in university, you learn so much outside of like your actual course's content. It's all the things that you learn in between, you know. It's about developing all these skills that are very crucial later in your life, such as critical thinking, time management, academic writing. All of those are very crucial, and they're not even that degree specific. They're just something you eventually have to do and learn in uni. Also, I feel like another important thing is to add is that like nowadays the job market is very, very different from how it used to look like before in our parents' or grandparents' times. And for many jobs, you don't even actually need like a specific degree, which is also something I didn't even know before coming here. Like, I was quite a shocker. For example, one of my friends, she studies linguistics, and she just got a big old job in insurance, I believe. So you'd assume there's like no connection here, but again, it's like she proved that it's possible. And I think with a lot of jobs, you actually, again, they don't require a specific degree. Obviously there will be jobs that do require, it's not like a rule that applies to every single profession, but for many of them, especially like jobs in corporations and firms, you don't even have to have a particular background. Just any background from like a good university is sufficient. And that's quite like a nice realization, because it gives you the freedom of studying what you actually want and are interested in. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to studying abroad relates to kind of leaving home behind. And something I realized in London is that you can make a home out of any place as long as you have people who make you feel safe, heard, and understood and seen. I feel like I've talked about this quite a lot, so I don't want to like elaborate on it again or repeat myself too many times. But I was really lucky in terms of my friends in London and the connections I made, and I think I made close friends pretty quickly. And as much as my friendships did shift and fluctuate throughout university, and I'm not best friends with the same people that I was 2 years ago or 3 years ago when I moved in, I feel like for most of my time in London, basically since day one, I just had people who I felt like good with, who I feel like they got me, who I feel like I could talk to. And just, I made really, I'm sure, like lifelong connections here. And I think truly this was one of the bigger reasons for which I was rarely homesick. As much as I love my parents and love my home and think of it as a safe space as well, I just rarely missed home. I rarely was like, I don't even remember a day where I was just like really wanting to go home. I think there was like one specific period that I did really want to go back to Poland. And the thing is, the only reason I really wanted to go home is because I developed kind of like anxiety for a period of my life. And I just really didn't feel great in London. And that's another point that I want to make, is that I learned, and I will stick through with this lesson, that homesickness is not really about missing home, but more about not feeling safe and okay at wherever you're at. It really reminds me of like summer camps that I used to go on. And I would just cry for my mom, and I would just, all that I wanted to is to go home. But that's because I hated summer camps. It was such a introverted, stay at home, staying close to my family and parents type of kid. I really didn't want to go on like adventurous summer sports camps in the middle of Poland. Like, that's why I was missing home. And here, because I really do feel okay here, I rarely miss home. And I think it's like a blessing that my moving out and leaving the family nest thing was so smooth, and I'm very grateful that I got to, you know, just meet so many people that made me feel that way and made that a possibility for me. Yet another thing that I learned while studying abroad is the importance of being proactive. This is, I think, a very general life lesson, right? Proactivity and being the person to engage a conversation, start an interaction, start a project, whatever it is, send that email, go up to that person, you know, you can think of other examples. It can really get you far in life, and it can really get you to places that you did not expect it will. And I'm not saying every single conversation that you have will end up at something significant, or will end up in a big friendships, or in like a job opportunity or an internship opportunity, but it just might, you know? And so why not give it a try? Like, the worst outcome that you can face is hearing a no or being rejected, which is, you know, something that you have to learn how to deal with, because it's something that you're going to face a lot in your adult life on all fronts, I'd say. To give you an example, my roommate, who was just playing her music really loudly, she, I remember in first year, really was keen on finding an internship. But the thing with London, I think at least, is that not a lot of first years get internships. Like, internship is something that you usually do in your, like, after your second or third year of uni. But Bae really wanted one, and she really wanted to work through the summer. So she just, like, kept on emailing, like, random professors just about, you know, basically explaining the situation, that she's interested in these types of things. She studies, like, biomedical sciences. She's done this experiments in her past. Like, this is her CV, and maybe there's, like, some internship opportunity with this professor. And eventually one of them just replied to her that there is. And her first summer in London, she ended up working and doing an internship while no one else got one. And I was just really inspired by that. And I was just like, wow, you really can do that. So you learn that you're much more in control of your life and, like, where it goes. I feel like whilst in school, you just have much less choices and the path is much more straightforward. And there's a little, like, wiggle room for your own initiative. Whereas whilst you enter the adult world and university, you just really have to make the most out of those opportunities. And you're the only person who is able to do that. And that should be, again, like a freeing realization rather than something that generates pressure and stress. I hope so, at least. And lastly, I think I just want to say in general that studying abroad, as fun and glamorous and exciting as it is and was, it's also, like, a difficult time, and it's also very challenging at times. You're gonna be put in so many unfamiliar, unlikely situations, ones that you were not expecting, ones that you would not think you would find yourself in, and you're just gonna have to deal with those new environments. But I think, again, through being put in those exact unfamiliar, uncomfortable, quote-unquote situations is where I learned so much, is why I changed so much. I think a lot of people from my high school, or at least from, like, what I've heard from, like, friends of friends, is that, like, they think I changed a lot, or, like, I'm really different and that, like, they don't recognize me. I do get that, because I was so different in high school. Like, I guess most of you don't really know, but I was pretty much like a closed, introverted, shy, not really confident person with a few interests and just very doubtful of herself. And all that I did was study. And so I feel like I just really grew into myself at university, that it, like, living in London also enabled me just so many opportunities to explore what I actually like. I started doing pole fitness. That's something I never thought I would do. I got into the gym as well. I became really social. Like, as I said, I always thought of myself as an introvert. And turns out in a lot of situations, I feel like more of an extrovert. And I do actually like mingling with people once I realized that there's a lot of people who are like me, again, because it's not really enjoyable to hang out with people you don't really care about, or you don't feel that, like, they resonate or they understand you. Also, I think I learned that I can handle a lot more than I could before. I remember I was such a frightened person of the world, and I genuinely remember, and this is a bit embarrassing, but I remember, like, before coming to London, I literally had, like, moments where I would, like, cry because I was scared of how dangerous London is, because I heard, like, horror stories about it, and I was just like, how like, my little small town ass is gonna handle those things? How am I gonna deal with all of this? The first night that I came to London, and it was still with my parents, right? They, like, moved me in and helped me with all of that. When I stepped out of King's Cross, which is, funnily enough, where I live now, I just felt so, like, unsafe, and, like, this is all so new and crazy, and I was just like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? Like, this is gonna be intense, and it's gonna be a lot. Like, girl, I'm literally wanting to travel across the other side of the world for, like, a few months by myself, and I'm completely fine with that. Like, are you kidding me? Me 3 years ago could never. And I say it with, like, pride, because I'm just so happy about the person that I became through this experience, partially, I guess. And so, yeah, if you're really kind of craving that, if wherever you live right now feels like too small for you, or that the people that surround you just don't really get you, or that, like, you're just excited and curious about the other things that are out there, if you're that kind of person, I think you're gonna enjoy studying abroad. And I know this is, like, a generalization, and don't take it too much to heart, but I would say there is this, like, common factor between a lot of people who choose to study abroad, is that, like, curiosity and excitement towards life, and, like, knowing that there's so much more to be explored, and just being really open to it, I'd say. And so, yeah, I don't want to make this video too long, but it was a really sweet one to record, and it just kind of feels right to record it, like, at the end. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching and for following me through this journey. I can't believe I literally vlog so much of it, and I have vlogs going back to, like, my first month in London. It's just so like heartwarming and sweet. We'll see where life takes me after this, I guess. I'll be sure to let you know though. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. All my kisses to you, and good luck with whatever you're working towards right now. And if you're wanting to study abroad, I genuinely so hope that it's going to work out for you. And if you're scared, that's how we all feel, and you'll get over it. So I'll talk to you in another video. Bye.